After 3 years of red tape, Ukrainian troops are finally getting their hands on the Bastion armored personnel carrier, courtesy of France. If you thought waiting for French military aid was like waiting for a French waiter to bring you your check, well, you're not far off. Why so late? Why does it matter? Wait, is Frenchie actually your real name? But I am back, Monsieur Wes, huh? Hey friends, Wes here, multi-branch veteran, law grad, and lover of armored personnel carriers that I can park in my driveway just to off my HOA. And today, the first ACMAT Bastion armored vehicles have officially arrived in Ukraine after a 3-year, will they, won't they, worthy of a bad Parisian soap opera. French defense firm Arcus finally handed over the keys following a full test cycle run by Ukraine's military. Back in April of 2025, France promised 11 bastions, but the political gridlock and the lack of a formal agreement kept these vehicles parked in limbo. It wasn't until May of 2024 that production actually resumed, with Arcus now saying they can build up to 100 more if Ukraine wants them. For Kyiv, this is less about quantity and more about finally plugging a gap in its fleet of armored vehicles with something simple, rugged, and, let's be honest, about as flashy as a good Bordeaux. Ukraine's need for armored personnel carriers is nothing new. Over 3 years into a war of attrition, the demand for vehicles that can shuttle troops, medics, and supplies through drone-infested skies is relentless. Kyiv's been patching things together with donated Humvees, ex-Soviet BTRs, and whatever else they can slap some armor onto, but the Bastion is meant to take some of that strain off older, lighter vehicles and fill a role somewhere between up-armored delivery van and rolling pillbox. Meanwhile, France is playing catch-up, eager to prove that it's not just sending rhetoric, but real hardware. The arrival of the Bastion is as much about politics as it is about logistics. France needs a win, and Ukraine needs every APC it can get. We finally give you the Bastion, huh? Ah, mes amis, you want an armored personnel carrier, yes, but of course only the Bastion is strong enough to survive both the mud of Ukraine and the wine stains of Paris, huh? For 3 years, we French, we take our time. We taste the cheese, we sip the wine, and eventually we ship and deliver the Bastion. What is the problem? She is not the biggest, she is not the fastest, but she is très reliable, just like my mother's Renault. Only she does not break down every Sunday. Now we give her to Ukrainians and it'll make her sing. Well, maybe not sing, but at least make sure she is not used as a taxi in Kyiv, huh? Right. So, what exactly is the Bastion? Well, built on the proven VLRA platform, the ACMAT Bastion is a 4x4 armored personnel carrier that's simple, rugged, and versatile. It's powered by a 215 horsepower diesel engine, maxing out at about 110 kilometers per hour, and can go over 1,000 kilometers before needing a refuel, enough to outlast even the most persistent Russian drone. The Bastion carries up to 10 troops in a monocoque armored hull with ballistic protection up to STANAG Level 2, meaning it'll shrug off small arms and artillery fragments and keep rolling after a landmine blast. High ground clearance and beefy suspension means it's just as happy bouncing through a muddy field as it is rolling down the city streets. There are plenty of variants: ambulance, comms platform, weapons carrier, even a special forces model that looks like a Mad Max fever dream. And because the French are nothing if not modular, it's all about flexibility. You can bolt on whatever you need, whenever you need it. The Bastion may not be a high-tech, AI-driven battle wagon like Ukraine's new Gyurza 02, but it's exactly what Ukraine needs: a simple, modular, easy-to-maintain French vehicle that can handle tough terrain, keep the troops alive, and be converted for any mission under the sun. In this war, logistics are just as important as firepower. Plugging a capability gap, however basic, is a win. And for France, it's a chance to shake off the reputation of slow-walking arms deliveries and remind the world it still has skin in the game. If Ukraine likes the Bastion, up to 100 more could roll eastward, and you can bet Frenchie will take all the credit. Let's get brutally honest, the Bastion is an entry-level APC designed for everything from peacekeeping in Mali to counterinsurgencies in the Sahel, not for high-intensity, drone-soaked artillery slugfests in Ukraine. Ukraine's adoption of the Bastion highlights a doctrinal gap that NATO countries have been slow to address. Western APCs are mostly designed for stability ops, not meat grinder warfare. The Bastion is rugged, yes, but it isn't exactly an Australian bushmaster. It doesn't swim, it's not heavily armed, and its armor is built to stop AK-47s and IEDs, not Lancet drones or thermobaric artillery. Ukrainian doctrine, born of necessity, means these bastions will see combat conditions that would horrify their original designers at Arcus. Western militaries typically use their lighter APCs far from the main line of contact. Think patrols, logistics, medevac. In Ukraine, they're using whatever moves for everything, including high-risk troop insertions, frontline resupply, and even as airsats or battle taxis for storming trenches. That's not what the French manuals had in mind. And there's a bigger doctrinal gap here. The Bastion lacks the digital integration, the remote weapon stations, and the active protection systems that are quickly becoming standard in new Ukrainian designs. Compared to something like the Gyurza 02, AI-supported threat detection, counter-drone systems, modular add-ons, and you can see where the Bastion might be lacking. But I will say this, the Bastion is the Toyota Hilux of APCs. Simple, reliable, and hardly bleeding edge. Then there's the logistics gap. France can produce up to 100 more Bastions if Ukraine wants them, but it's not clear whether the training, parts, and maintenance pipeline is ready for high attrition, high turnover combat. Historically, when Western vehicles get fielded in Ukraine, the absence of spare parts or local repair expertise can grind a fleet down faster than any Russian artillery. And let's not ignore the tactics. Western doctrine doesn't normally toss lightly armored vehicles into the meat grinder zone. Ukraine, out of necessity, is doing exactly that. So, will they up-armor the Bastion? Will they add drone screens or slap on extra comms kits? Probably. Finally, the Bastion's arrival exposes a philosophical divide. Western partnerships still think in terms of sufficient protection and mobility, while Ukraine is living in a world of maximum survivability and keep the wheels turning no matter what. The Bastion will need adaptation, both technical and tactical, to survive its new home on Europe's deadliest battlefield. Will France follow through with more Bastions? Will Ukraine put them to better use than half of the armies in Africa? And will Frenchie ever give back my beret? The answers depend on how these first 11 vehicles perform and whether French industry can actually deliver on time. That's the scoop, friends. If you want more stories of old NATO gear getting a new lease on life in Ukraine, hit subscribe, drop a comment for Frenchie, and tell me which APC you would want sitting in your driveway. Until next time, glory to Ukraine.
Vive la France!
Glory to the heroes. Crimea is Ukraine.